This is the 3100 block of Weymouth Street in North Philadelphia.
It's a massive drug trafficking conspiracy spanning nearly a decade.
What federal investigators called ground zero for a long-running drug operation in plain sight.
Involving tremendous volumes of fentanyl and narcotics.
Those people you see lining up, allegedly customers for fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and more.
Estoy jodiendo a las más duras con un vasito púrpura vestido con ropa oscura. Salgo y los mando pa'l gula, gracias a la...
Sold openly around the clock for years, until now.
We have permanently removed a drug trafficking organization out of the streets of Philadelphia, and they're going to stop pouring guns and chemicals and drugs into our community.
El año pasado me llevó los cuantos, el fallo de testigo, claro, le hicimos canto. Hice el trabajo, después lo reparto, aquí no se dan cuenta los gramos. ¡Ah, Fred! Hágale cajón, está jodiendo allá afuera. ¿Qué quiere, bro? 20. ¿Lo que hace, cabrón? Sí, jefe, dando la ropa en 17, dale, te toca. Dale, de serio, dale, si no tuviera ahora.
The feds say the operation revolved around one man, Jose Antonio Morales Nieves, aka Flaco. Prosecutors say he ran a drug network that stretched from Puerto Rico to the Kensington neighborhood of Philadelphia.
Patroncito, patroncito, va muertito. Te pato la cara con mi Draco y lo repito.
The Kensington neighborhood of Philadelphia has long been documented as the epicenter of the opioid crisis in the northeastern United States, a jaw-dropping, in-your-face, open-air drug market that operates with a degree of visibility and impunity rarely seen in modern American cities. However, the indictment and subsequent investigation of Weymouth Street and their operations by the FBI offers a granular, almost microscopic view into the machinery that powered this blight to the community. The 3100 block of Weymouth Street has plagued the city of Philadelphia for years, as it functioned 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Addicts can come to buy fentanyl, cocaine, and crack up and down the block. Weymouth Street, funded in part by their connects in Puerto Rico, some of the most violent and notorious Rican gangs. The government alleges they used multiple occupied and abandoned houses and lots on the block, as well as trash cans, ground drains, cars, tires, porches, basically anywhere to store small to medium amounts of drugs in easily accessible places. In addition to the stashing of drugs in various locations along the 3100 block of Weymouth, they allegedly used several off-the-block locations to package and store drugs that they delivered to the block through re-ups. Up until August 2025, when the FBI searched both locations, Weymouth used a house on Tackawanna Street as a bag house for fentanyl, and it used a garage on Rover Street as a stash house for crack. Weymouth also used a particular lot on Weymouth Street as a meeting place, stash location, and location to cook crack. They called it the bunker. It consists of a drywall structure with a physically connected tent structure with a door in between that can be opened or closed. Over the course of the FBI and Philadelphia Police Department's investigation in the case, about 4 keys of fentanyl, 727 grams of crack, and around 4 keys of powder cocaine were seized, either from controlled buys, arrest on the block, or the execution of search warrants. The government says that those relatively small amounts do not come close to representing the enormous quantity sold by Weymouth over the 9-year conspiracy that was charged. A conservative estimate, as the evidence underlying the case will show, is that Weymouth, for the 9-year period that was charged, trafficked roughly 10 to 18 keys of fentanyl and 16 to 30 keys of crack to buyers in the Kensington area. Weymouth represents what the government called a state of exception, where standard laws were suspended by force and commerce. For nearly a decade, from 2016 to late 2025, Weymouth Street operated and maintained its dominance not through just drug sales, but through the establishment of a parallel type governing structure involving payroll, shift work, infrastructure like management, and, of course, violence. The investigation culminated in a 41-count federal indictment, which will reveal a well-organized operation that was able to absorb repeated law enforcement shocks, including raids, arrests, and seizures, only to recalibrate and expand their operations. This video serves as a foundational dossier organizing thousands of pages of court documents, wiretap transcripts, and surveillance logs into a cohesive narrative. It dissects the organization's hierarchy, its lethal indifference to its customer base, and its sophisticated network stretching from Puerto Rico, and the disturbing cycle of recidivism that allowed convicted murderers and career criminals to operate the block without fear of arrest. The hierarchy structure resembles that of the mafia. The resilience of the Weymouth group stems from its biological and romantic composition. Unlike strictly transactional gangs, Weymouth is built upon a core family tree with layers of loyalty and complicity that are difficult for the law to penetrate. The leadership structure includes moms, dads, cousins, sisters, wives, brothers, sons, and everything else, and of course violence in its enforcement. At the center of the conspiracy stands Nancy Rios Valentine, described by federal prosecutors as the quote, glue of the organization. Her power is derived from a trifecta of relationships. She is the sister of Weymouth's deceased former leader, Fellow. She is in a romantic relationship with who prosecutors say is the current street boss, Ramon Roman Montanez, and the sister of the chief enforcer, Angel Rios Valentine. Nancy's role defies the traditional girlfriend archetype often seen in blockbuster narco-trafficking movies. The evidence places her in an executive capacity. Nancy didn't merely pass messages, she actively managed the shift schedule. Evidence includes handwritten ledgers and text messages where she assigns specific caseworkers to time slots on the block like 7 to 3, 3 to 12, 12 to 7, etc. This schedule had an almost corporate-like rigidity, ensuring 24-hour coverage of the block. She was responsible for the collection of the drug money. Seizures at her residence on Weymouth Street, which the FBI calls the headquarters, yielded hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. $55,000 was seized in 2018, $124,000 in cash in 2022, and just recently in 2025, another $24,000 was seized from the property. Surveillance and wiretaps captured Nancy Rios Valentine directing the resupply of the corner runners. In one intercepted call, she coordinates the delivery of quote white rice, which is cocaine package, making sure that the inventory levels match the customer demand. Her authority even extended to discipline. On March 17, 2025, she was photographed publicly chastising a low-level street dealer, Lewis Williams, for money discrepancy. Immediately following her cursing him out, enforcers physically assaulted him, demonstrating that her word was backed by immediate violence. Viejo served as the daily operations manager and the romantic partner of Nancy Rios Valentine. Living with her on 3100 Weymouth Street, he turned their shared home into a fortified command center. Viejo's leadership style was characterized by pragmatism regarding the deadliness of fentanyl. He was the primary liaison with the guys that would cook up and the suppliers. His role involved personally testing and approving batches of fentanyl. He coordinated with upstream suppliers to ensure the continuous flow of food or heroin and hard or crack cocaine. Unlike many leaders who insulate themselves, Viejo remained hands-on, personally conducting sales of up to 50 to 100 bundles on the street to high-value customers and participating in controlled buys with FBI informants. The ultimate authority of the Weymouth operation was Jose Antonio Morales Nueves, or Flaco, who operated with a level of insulation provided by distance. While he maintained ownership of the block in Kensington, he frequently resided in Rico, Puerto Rico. His extradition from Puerto Rico in October 2025 marked the culmination of the federal investigation. Flaco functioned as the financial backstop and the quote bank for the organization. Despite reporting zero legitimate income, he frequently posted significant bail amounts for block runners and dealers, ensuring their silence and return to the workforce. Records show that his mom, Elizabeth Valentine Colon, would act as surety for the bail of up to $25,000 for Weymouth members. Angel Rios Valentine, brother to Nancy and a dead former leader, Fellow, represents Weymouth's capacity for violence. A career criminal with a federal firearms conviction, from 2020, he returned to the organization immediately upon his release from prison. His role was the protection of the enterprise's assets and territory, basically the muscle. He stockpiled an arsenal of war-grade weaponry. Upon his arrest in October 2025, while he was on federal supervised release, agents recovered a Glock 40 caliber pistol, an Anderson MFG assault rifle, a CD Defense semi-automatic assault pistol, an Aero Precision M4E1 assault rifle from his residence. Weymouth operated with a sophistication that mirrors legitimate business firms. They utilized a hub and spoke distribution model, keeping bulk inventory in off-site locations or stash houses and moving just-in-time inventory to the retail location on Weymouth Street to make sure things were always running, including during police raids. The organization had multiple properties to spread the risk out. Effectively, 3100 block of Weymouth Street acted as the retail floor, an open-air drug market open 24/7. Another house on the block was the, quote, headquarters. This is where Nancy Rios and Roman Montanez lived. Right next door to that was the bunker. This is where Weymouth leadership would cook and prepare crack, a specially constructed drywall/tent structure used for meetings, cooking crack, and avoiding surveillance. Right down the street was what they called an overflow stash house. This was used to store guns and bulk amounts of drugs. The house on Talcahuano Street was the fentanyl stash house, as I said earlier, ran by Sandino Hidalgo Genayo, or Domi. The garage on Rohrer Street acted as the crack stash house. This is where Joey, or Joel, would operate from. Talcahuano Street, managed by Dome, was described by the FBI as the engine of Weymouth. Here, bulk fentanyl was cut and packaged for sale. The investigation showed a disturbing lack of care for the potency of the product. On July 26, 2025, federal wiretap captured a conversation between Viejo and Dome that they say encapsulates Weymouth's philosophy. Viejo says, "If you can make it just a little bit stronger, that'll be good." Dome responds, "Bro, if I make it any stronger, it'll kill him." Viejo then says, "Okay, then leave it like that. Check to see if you can make it burn later." The FBI says this exchange confirms that the leadership was consciously aware that their product was deadly. Viejo's concern was not for potential overdoses, but rather the aesthetic quality of the drug when they talk about it, quote, burning lighter to appeal to user preferences. The raid on this spot yielded over 2 keys of fentanyl and thousands of stamped bags ready for sale. Weymouth Street utilized branding to differentiate their product in the competitive Kensington market. They used ink stamps on their wax paper baggies, creating recognizable product lines. Identified stamps included Rifle or Ric Flair, Santa Muerta, Ocho Blanco, Debo, Little Devil, and Junkie Love. Weymouth understood the cycles of addiction and government assistance. Evidence shows that on the last day of the month, immediately before welfare benefit checks were issued, Weymouth would flood the 3100 block with free samples of new fentanyl. The FBI alleged that this predatory marketing tactic was designed to increase user dependence on their specific brand, right as customers got their check. Surveillance images from October 31st, 2025 show crowds swarming the block for these free handouts. The FBI says Weymouth's, quote, labor management was formalized. Handwritten ledgers recovered from Nancy's house on Weymouth Street, which the government called the headquarters, like I said, detailed a rigid shift schedule. 7 to 3, 3 to 12, 12 to 7. The ledger lists specific workers for each slot, like Nan for Nancy, Panza, who was killed back in October, Eli, Moya, and Chippy. Workers were paid based on sales volumes, with proceeds divvied out daily at the headquarters. Wiretaps captured Chicken, or Javier Resto Berrios, discussing the financial necessity of picking up extra shifts to pay bills, showing the position of the lower level dealers. Weymouth maintained its territory through a calculated projection of power. This was allegedly achieved through physical violence, the accumulation of power, and the sophisticated use of social media propaganda. They didn't rely on random weaponry. They amassed a paramilitary arsenal. The seizure of multiple assault rifles like AR-15s and AK-47 variants, semi-automatic pistols with extended magazine, indicates a readiness for war, says the FBI indictment. These weapons were placed in, quote, strategic locations like stash houses and under cars on the block. A distinct feature of Weymouth was his use of YouTube music videos to, quote, intimidate rivals and allegedly recruit young boys. Weymouth made videos filmed directly on the 3100 block. Videos like Philly Boy in April 2024 features Elio, Chippy, and Grande, who the FBI says were brandishing firearms and flashing gang signs on the very corners they controlled. Pantracito in November 2023 features the now deceased leader, Panza, brandishing a firearm while lyrics explicitly threatens rivals. "I'll get you with Panzo with Draco and you're stiff," is what the FBI says the lyrics translate to. The video 23, which came out in May of 2024, features Grande holding stacks of what the FBI says are drug proceeds on the block. The lyrics taunt law enforcement. "You die today or you die today. I'll make sure of it. They told me the facts. You're talking to the DEA," says the indictment.
Mueres o te mueres, yo me encargo que así sea. Ya me pasaron los datos, estás hablando con la DEA.
Kyle Ken shows a co-contributor on the stoop of Weymouth's bunker holding a handgun with an extended magazine. The FBI says these videos were not merely artistic expression. They were proof of the gang's aspirations for domination. The FBI says that Weymouth constructed a physical stronghold known as the bunker on Weymouth Street. I've described this earlier. It consisted of a drywall structure attached to a tent, providing a private space for cooking crack and conducting business away from street view. However, the FBI managed to install a covert video/audio recording device inside the bunker. This device captured high-definition evidence of defendants cooking crack, and they had Roman Montanez and others discussing business strategy. The presence of Nancy's sister, Elizabeth, during the drugs discussions shatters her defense of non-involvement. One of the most damning aspects of the Weymouth investigation is the repeated failure of the criminal justice system to incapacitate these actors. Weymouth was staffed by individuals who had been arrested, convicted, and released, only to immediately return to the 3100 block. Joel Carrillo Crespo, or Joey, serves as the exact type of person I'm talking about. In 2003, he committed a murder just feet away from the 3100 block of Weymouth Street. He was convicted and sentenced to 15 to 30 years in prison. He served nearly 21 years. Upon his parole release in March 2023, he did not rehabilitate. He immediately resumed a leadership role, according to the FBI. He allegedly managed crack cocaine supply, utilizing the garage on Rover Street. His immediate return to the same block to allegedly commit the same crimes highlights the deep entrenchment of the organization. For Joey, Weymouth was the only home and employer that mattered. Adelita Gonzalez, the street-level dealer, exemplifies the revolving door of local justice. A career offender with convictions dating back to 2003, she was arrested by local police for drug trafficking on October 23, 2025, the day before the massive federal takedown. After being processed and released by local authorities, she did not flee or hide. She went straight back to the 3100 block of Weymouth Street at 6 a.m. FBI surveillance cameras captured her, showing her new court paperwork to Weymouth members hours before the raid, treating the arrest as a minor nuisance before resuming work. Angel Rios Valentin was convicted federally in 2020 for possessing a firearm taken from the block. He was sentenced to 60 months. When he got out, he was on federal supervision. He immediately rearmed himself with an even larger arsenal of assault weapons and allegedly resumed his role as enforcer on the block. Following the October 2025 takedown, a fierce legal battle ensued regarding the pretrial detention of all 33 members, specifically Nancy Rios Valentin. A significant portion of the evidence comes from the wiretap of Javier Resto Berrios, or Chicken. A review of 7 days of calls from May 9th to May 16th, 2025 provides a window into the mundane daily grind of this line of work. Weymouth used thin codes like food to refer to heroin, white rice or snow to refer to coke, and chinitas refer to crack cocaine vials. On May 10th, Chicken complains that nothing has come in, including snow, indicating that the supply train had been disrupted. The dealers constantly discussed the schedule. On May 12th, Chicken and Carla Diaz Resto anxiously discuss who has the Tuesday shift, as the shift assignment determines their income for the week. They reference Nancy and Viejo as the financial arbiters of these disputes. On May 9th, Chicken notes that he has taken 50 packets, but checking for slow stuff, which means lower potency or worse product. The indictment of Weymouth is a document of systemic entrenchment. It shows a criminal organization that successfully, effectively seceded from the illegal order of Philadelphia for nearly a decade. By combining family loyalty, corporate logistics, extreme violence, and community propaganda, they created an ecosystem that survived standard policing. The fact that a murder committed in 2003, a gun seized in 2019, and a bag of fentanyl sold in 2025 are all connected by the same family on the same block and the same indictment under the same business model. On the open air market was a highly organized generational enterprise that required a massive federal intervention to dismantle. Whether this latest takedown breaks the quote family tree or merely prunes it for the next generation remains the open question for Kensington. Viejo was arrested following the execution of search warrants in August 2025. Fentanyl, crack cocaine, and over $24,000 in cash and business ledgers were recovered. Beyond the drug trafficking indictment, he is charged with a conspiracy related to an animal fighting ring involving roosters. Agent found a key at his home that opened a neighboring property. where a Glock 27 pistol was recovered. In addition to drug conspiracy charges, the indictment against the 33 defendants shows violent and diverse nature of the enterprise, with charges including the conspiracy to sponsor an animal fighting venture, and also seized were dozens of guns, confirming the group's control over the block and neighborhood. While the removal of the leadership triad and low-level dealers is a significant victory for law enforcement, the long-term challenge remains the balloon effect. The underlying demand for drugs in Philly and Kensington has not been addressed, meaning the thousands of customers who patronize the Weymouth Street will likely migrate to adjacent blocks, potentially leading to increased violence as rival groups contest the newly vacant and highly lucrative real estate. Editors know here at the end, I think this was a big political stunt by Kash Patel, the director of the FBI. I feel like after the murder of Charlie Kirk and the release of the non-release of the Epstein files, that Kash Patel was under a lot of pressure, and he basically went to his biggest cities around the country and told their FBI field office, I need your biggest indictment you got right now. So Kash Patel could show up, show his face, and take credit for that. So I feel like this whole thing was a rush political stunt. And I also feel that with most of these charges, nobody is going to be doing serious time. Maybe the top 2 people might get 20 years or something, but I think everybody in this indictment is looking at 10 years or less. A lot of them looking at way less. If you want more in-depth breakdowns of Philly crime and drill scenes, make sure to like the video and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you know. I'm gonna leave it there for now. Thanks for watching American Confidential, and until next time, be safe.
Nieves controlled several properties on the street, allegedly offering free rent to tenants who agreed to move his product. In the 173-page indictment obtained by Newsmax, federal prosecutors outlined a narcotics ring that ran like a business. The Weymouth crew kept a schedule of who did what and when. Runners resupplied the drugs, caseworkers managed the drugs, enforcers protected the drugs, and of course the hustlers or street dealers made the transactions. All of it held together by fear, allegedly through violence and intimidation.
They enforced their territory through the threats of assaults, shootings, and murder.
And according to authorities, this drug syndicate wasn't shy about flaunting their violence, posing with illegal firearms and the stacks of cash those weapons were used to secure. But that flaunt came with a price: handcuffs. And the Justice Department's warning to other traffickers in Philadelphia is simple: you're next.
You will see our faces again. The next indictment has a space with your name on it.